And anyway, Dave, you should be fully focused on the beautiful dance because you want to dance the dance, Dave. You want to dance the most beautiful dance in entertainment.
Can I dance it on Slack?
I'm so excited about dancing the dance.
What's going on?
It's the most intimate dance, Dave.
The waltz.
It's cheek to cheek. Because, Dave, you told me you wanted to dance, and I woke up at 3:30 this morning. So excited about dancing with you.
What's he talking about, Elis?
He texted me at 6 a.m. about this, because that is true. John
true.
has been up for 9 hours.
What, ready to dance?
Ready to dance.
Dave?
Ready to have his favourite conversation. And I have had this conversation where it's relevant to me 3 times with one of the biggest promoters in comedy.
Are you going to tell me off?
No, Dave, I'm going to dance. Well, I'm not going to dance with you. We're going to watch the dance that I describe because it's the most beautiful dance in all of show business.
Cool.
It's the romantic frisson, the interplay between venue capacity, ticket price, and audience demand.
Oh, kiss me.
Oh, Dave, it's my favourite dance.
I'm looking forward to the dance, John. I've stretched.
We've done 2 tours together.
Yeah.
We've done 3 tours together.
Have we?
I think so.
No. The first one where we did the Shepherd's Bush Empire, then we did the Holy Bible, which was in 2018.
Oh, okay.
Which at the Apollo.
Yeah.
Although my mum and dad are convinced they saw you two do a show together at the Phoenix.
We've done that. We've done lots of gigs, but 2 tours we've done together. Yeah. But we've had lots of gigs. So we've probably had this conversation more than twice, actually, because we've always discussed it prior to gigs as well. Because as an artist / comedian / musician, performer, when you decide to go on tour, you have a conversation with your promoter about ticket prices.
Well, Dave, set the scene. Why do you want to dance this delicious dance with me?
And it's John's favourite conversation.
Because, John...
Yes, Dave.
This might surprise you.
We're entering the ballroom.
I love your hot takes. Cuff me. I like John's informed.
Yes.
So not so hot that they're just irresponsible and wayward.
Oh, no.
Your takes are usually well considered. So genuinely, and I assume I know where this is going, something to do with something called dynamic blooming pricing.
Yeah. Talk to me. Well, no, don't talk to me. Listen.
I want to know.
Let me talk to myself.
The great conversations always start with someone saying, "Listen to me and keep your mouth shut."
Because
I am the great conversationalist with myself.
I thought you would have good stuff on this because you both come from these worlds of tours and ticket sales and collaborations.
I wish, as some sort of podcast extra, that we could put up a camera in the room at Philmac when John and I discuss ticket prices so that the listeners / punters could be a fly on the wall.
What happened?
Because we're usually there with Ed and Amy, lovely Ed and Amy who work there, and me and John, be 4 of us in the room. I will say almost nothing, and John takes over.
Great.
He loves it.
We do the dance. The one thing better than talking about the dance is actually being involved in that dance, Dave.
Yeah.
So
in this dance, Elis just sits there.
Yeah, for instance, and some of the gigs we do, we don't have control of the ticket prices. Sheffield, for instance, that wasn't set by us.
No.
But
that was a festival.
That was a festival, and that was set by the festival itself. Whereas, obviously, when we go on tour, we are setting the ticket prices. And that's where the dance begins.
That's where the dance begins.
I often opt out of.
So, Dave, last week we were making merry with your desperation to get Oasis tickets.
Yes, we were.
And obviously, since then, Oasis have become the main news story.
Even more so than they were before the tickets went on sale.
I need to get my notes.
You made notes! Yes! John!
As John looks at his notes, the last event like this I can think of is Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour.
Yes.
Because obviously that was huge and millions of... Well, I Googled this on the way in today, and according to a press report I read from the time, Ticketmaster, just before the tickets went on sale, estimated that 2.9 million people in the UK would try and get Taylor Swift tickets. And I've seen news reports where people are complaining because they're in the queue for Taylor Swift tickets and they're saying, oh my God, I'm 35,000 in the queue. I'm never going to get them. The news reports I read after the Oasis tickets went on sale claimed that 14 million people were trying to buy Oasis tickets.
And that's a big part of the dance.
And obviously not all of them are based in the UK because currently these are the only shows. Yeah. So, people are coming from Australia and all sorts of things. 14 million people is the figure I saw in the press.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who was 115,000th in the queue.
One of the lucky ones.
One of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
I went to watch the Swans play West Brom on Saturday, and I was in the queue for the queue. So I wasn't even in the queue.
Oh, you're on the timeline ticker.
I was.
That's a shame.
Right. And
you should have got in the waiting room at 8:15, Elis.
Yes, Dave.
Carry on.
I got in the waiting room at 8:30.
Well, that's 50 minutes. That's 50 minutes
yes,
behind.
Dave.
250,000 people.
So there was that picture that went viral, and this person was like 533,000th in the queue, right? And I was in the pub with my friend Stephen, who does the SOS Swansea fanzine. And as I arrived, there was a lot of excitement because on the Bridgend Jackson bus on the way up to the game, my friend said no one was talking. Everyone was on their phones trying to buy tickets. It was like zero. It was like a zero banter bus because everyone was just concentrating on their phones and trying to buy tickets. And Stephen, when I walked in, he was 27,000th in the queue.
That's strong.
Which was strong.
Which is mad.
Right. So I was like, wow, okay. And then he went down to 18,000. And I thought, my God, I'm actually going to see someone buy a ticket live.
In the wild.
This is incredible.
Can you buy tickets to watch someone buying tickets?
Well, I was in the queue for that. Yeah. So I'm still in the queue for the queue. And he's now like at 9,000. And he made a very good point. He said, this is either very good or very bad. Because either it's sold out and no one's told us yet and people are just opting out.
Yes.
People are dropping out. Or, this is great, 3,000, 1,500. Now, people are gathered around the table to watch a man buy tickets.
It's
like 500, 243, 188, 56, 18. Now we're like, oh my God, he gets number one. It says, you can buy Oasis tickets. He puts in Cardiff, 4th of July, 2 tickets, goes to pay, and the site crashes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a story.
Unbelievable to watch.
It's a story as old as time at this stage, Elis, I'm afraid. Yeah.
So, that is what was happening all over the world with people trying to buy these tickets. The demand was vast, and that, John, obviously, is part of the dance, isn't it?
It's part of the dance. Let me take you back before the dance begins.
What? To our tickets?
No. Let me. I'm going to monologue for a bit, and then you can chip in with questions, Dave.
Okay. Can you turn me down, Dave?
Do we need to stay here for this bit?
Yeah. So
Not necessarily.
There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of lack of understanding about how ticket pricing and ticket selling works.
This is the dance that I've wanted.
But let's start off with the ideal situation for a promoter of live events.
Not the punter, crucially.
Not the punter. The ideal situation for a promoter of live events is that they sell out on the day they happen. Because what that means is you have perfectly balanced the size of the venue and the price of the ticket. Okay? So, for example, in Edinburgh, right, if I say to someone, a comedian, like, oh, how are you doing? And they're like, well, the venue sold out before the festival started, so I'm having a great time. In my head, I'm saying to them with my mouth and my eyes, well done.
That's great, man.
In my head, I'm thinking, you idiot.
Yeah.
Someone has made a catastrophic error, and if I were you, I would be livid.
Ellis James, 2010, 2011, 2012.
Because you've left tickets on the street.
Yeah, that's what you always say.
Yeah.
You will ring me from Edinburgh sometimes. And you've met a comedian in the street who I know, and you're like, she left a lot of money on the pavement.
Because what you want, my dream in like Edinburgh is to sell out the weekends sort of maybe a day in advance so that I don't get drunk people turning up at 7 o'clock on a Saturday going, oh, what's good?
Ellis James 2011, Rangers fans.
And to not quite sell out the weekdays, because then I know that I'm not leaving, as Ellis so wonderfully puts it, any money on the pavement.
But that's quite a challenge, is it not?
It's
to predict the future.
It's the dance, Dave.
Oh, it's the dance again.
It's the most delicious dance. And it's very hard to get right because you've got so many different, you don't quite know what demand's going to be. You might not have the right right venue available, so that you have to make compromises during the dance.
Yes.
You might get cancelled.
You might get you might get cancelled, or even worst case scenario, you suddenly get a load of buzz about
Kevin
you.
Bridges 2009.
When you're doing an 80-seat venue, something goes nuts. You get an appearance on like Mock the Week when it used to sort of have a big impact, and suddenly you're in Edinburgh and you're like, oh, there's money on the pavement.
There's so much money wading through money.
Kevin was doing, in 2009, that was the year we did our first Edinburgh shows, he was in, I think, a 50-seater, like a 55-seater, from what I remember. And he'd done Michael McIntyre's road show in like the April or the May even. And so, you know, if you're a debutant and you're doing really well and you're in a 50-seater, you might do a couple of extra shows and they might be in a 100-seater. He was doing extra shows in like the Pleasance Grand. Because there was such obsession with Kevin Bridges.
For someone at that level in that situation, it's not really about money. It's about the audience.
Yeah.
You can't grow. You can't. If you're missing out on 200 extra people seeing you a night over the course of the Edinburgh Festival, that's like 6,000 people who you could sort of bring on board who can't because your show's sold out. Anyway, as you can see, long term for Kevin Bridges, not really a problem because he's great and he's built that audience. So it's very hard to get that balance of ticket price, venue size, demand right. It's very rare that you're able to actually nail it. Also, an artist doesn't want, they don't think they want, but they're wrong. They don't want their things to sell out on the day. They want to get excited. They want to know it's sold out and it's sold well.
That's where I am because my ego is too fragile to see empty seats. So I would prefer to leave money on the pavement and have buzz in my room because, like I'm doing a Welsh language preview tour, they're tiny rooms because I just want the rooms to be full. So then you've got to balance what money means to you and what, sort of a good show and your mindset means to you.
But it's also audience enjoyment. Like you want the hardest promoter on earth would say it's better to sell 501 seats in a 1,000-seater than 500 seats in a 500-seater. And any artist would go, sorry, mate, you don't have to do the gig. It's much better for the venue to be buzzing and pumping, whatever. Yeah. Now, where to move the conversation towards Oasis and big acts like that, they have a separate issue completely, which is
divorce.
But for them, unlike what me and Elis are talking about, like comedians in Edinburgh, demand so vastly outstrips supply.
Yeah, because they could do 100 nights at Wembley, probably, and it would be fine.
So two things actually, it's really important to understand. As soon as any tickets go on sale for any event, a secondary ticketing market comes into existence, and you can't stop that. Even me, if I put on tickets for sale for a tour show and they're 22 quid, you get things on Twitter going, I've got tickets to see John Robbins, but I can't make it. Does anyone want them face value? Yeah. That is a secondary ticketing market.
Yes.
And it's legal. And it's legal for someone to say, do you want them at face value? And it's legal for someone to say, do you want them for 20 grand? That is legal.
Yeah, right.
And I shouldn't have paid that. You could have put me on the door.
And the music industry, artists, promoters, agents have lobbied the government to make it illegal, but the government have refused to. So that's the state of play. There's nothing wrong with saying, I've got tickets to Oasis and you can have them for 10 grand. Now, because that secondary market exists and will always exist, when demand outstrips supply, the band are not setting the ticket price, the audience are. That's a really important thing to get your head around.
Hadn't Oasis tried to bring something in that you could only transfer a ticket to someone else?
They tried to.
But it had to be face value.
Yeah, but they try to. But it's pissing in the wind, really. Lots of artists have tried to do this, and there are protections for sort of digital. Like the thing, if you get tickets on Dice, which lots of like live events do, you can only activate the ticket like a couple of hours before the thing. It has to be on your phone, and if your mates are there, you have to share QR codes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to stop me saying I've got an Oasis ticket, faking up a QR code and whatever, and send it to you and charging you well, that's fraud. That is illegal. But the idea of passing on tickets for profit is not illegal.
I'm going to watch Wales play tonight. My ticket is on my phone. I could transfer my ticket. I haven't had a paper ticket for a lot. Actually, I did last week at West Brom, but that's different.
This is why Elis isn't in charge of the dance stage.
But I could
starts talking about West Brom.
But I could transfer it to a friend.
Yeah.
As long as he's got the app. But if he chooses to pay me a lot of money, then the FAW aren't going to find out about that. So it's very difficult, isn't it, to stop secondary ticketing?
Yeah, and also secondary ticketing is made up of bots, reselling websites, eBay, etc. But probably mainly now, and touts, old school touts, which are sort of
a dying breed,
but mainly fans. The majority of secondary ticketing activity comes from fans. Right. So bear those two things in mind.
So the audience sets the price.
The audience set the ticket price.
What does that mean?
That means that it doesn't matter what you put on the ticket.
Yeah.
If someone somewhere will always pay something daft.
Right.
If the demand is outstripping the supply. Right. So when I put my tickets on sale, and I'm using me as an example, just an example of someone for whom demand is not outstripping supply. I'm not saying I'm sort of morally different because my tickets don't change hand for £1,000. But if I put 22 quid on the ticket, the secondary market that already exists is a secondary market of tickets for 22 quid.
Yes, understood. Yeah,
because you would just buy one from the site. Yeah. So inevitably, because people like Madonna and Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran and Oasis, because they can't do enough dates and enough seats to supply the demand, whatever price they put on the ticket, the market value is higher.
Yeah.
So I'm now going to defend Oasis, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start my assessment of what's happened by defending them.
Are you still dancing?
I'm still dancing and I am loving every second
I'm
of
in
it.
the kitchen at Film Up making tea.
I'm moving my hand down the small of her back, Dave. And I'm feeling the sweat beginning to glisten on the small of her back, Dave.
Oh, gosh.
Have you never had an intimate dance before, Dave? We're in a nightclub.
It feels very hot in the nightclub.
It is, Dave.
It is. It's hot. Of course it's hot.
So I am about to defend Oasis, right?
Okay.
Because when they create that secondary market, which we have already established exists, no one can stop that existing, because the demand is so enormous. That secondary market is huge.
Yeah.
And the amount of money in that secondary market is vast.
Yeah.
And tempting to tap into, I imagine.
So,
well, crucially, the money's not going to the band.
Well, this is exactly the point. Oasis and their management and the venues and the staff and everyone who's ever lugged a cable around or a flight box or printed a poster or whatever all have a right to their share of that money. Someone who buys a ticket and then sells it for 800 quid, pure profit, who has done no work, does not have a right to that money.
And hasn't written Don't Look Back in Anger.
No, even though what they're doing is legal, it's perfectly legitimate. And I think fans would agree that if there is money to be made from the sale of tickets to see Oasis, that money should go to Oasis, their management, the promoters, the venues, the staff, right? So... But the problem is, were they to charge the amount that would guarantee there wasn't an inflated secondary ticketing market, right?
Yeah.
They would have to say, and this is what they should have done, and this would solve the problem, but I can understand why they didn't. They would have to say, look, we're going to sell you tickets for what they're worth to stop people who are not involved in this process making money out of us. So the tickets are going to start at 200 quid and they're going to go up to $2,000. And that is the reality of life, okay? But
because who do you want to profit from Oasis?
Exactly.
Do you want, some bloke who's bought a ticket and is selling it for an absolute fortune, or Liam Gallagher?
Because the ticket is going to be sold for that price anyway, because it's what it's worth. It's like saying, I'm selling ounces of gold, and I'm going to sell them for $200. When the price of gold is, I don't know, $1,600, no one would do that. But they, in a sense, they have to, because they're not able to stomach the sort of the words coming out of their mouth or their team's mouth or being printed on tickets, that the tickets start at 500 and go up to $2,000.
Because, right, our friend Fergus Craig, the comedian, he pointed out on Twitter that Prince did 21 nights at the O2 and every single ticket was 31 quid. And that's great. And lots of people...
But every single ticket wasn't 31 quid.
No,
that's my point.
It meant that that's what Prince was charging, and that's what he got.
Yeah. So if you're an artist who just happens to have like a different approach and says, look, I'm worth 400 million. I'm going to make 5 million from these gigs. If the secondary market of those tickets being resold generates another 40 million, and I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to stress about it. I don't worry about it.
Yeah. I've
so
got
that's
enough.
Obviously like somewhere along the line, Prince has made that decision. I want to do the gigs for the sake of the gigs.
Yeah.
And
to allow everyone, to make them affordable for everyone, which they were at 31
that's fine.
quid.
However, as we know, and again, not making a judgment here, members of Oasis have recent bills to pay. So they're obviously trying to maximise the amount of money they earn without charging the actual value of the tickets, which is set, as we've discussed, by the audience in the secondary market that we can't control.
Yeah.
So I don't begrudge anyone involved in the promotion and the performance and the writing and of these gigs of trying to
maximise their revenue.
Maximise their share of the value of the tickets. The issue is they're not upfront about it. Right? They're trying to make out that in an ideal world, everyone would be paying 73 quid is just way too cheap. It's way under that's what causes the problem. It's just too cheap. And the idea that Oasis aren't aware that this is happening is absolutely ludicrous. Because I spoke to someone who moves in these circles, who's pretty high up, who said, can you imagine the conversation after 19 years of saying to Liam and Noel, do you want to reform? And they go, yeah. And they go, fine. And that's the end of the discussion. But obviously, the discussion is only about money.
Okay, so, and I'm new to this. I'm not in this business anywhere
By the way,
as
Dave,
you are.
for Dancing with Dave, you need to be charging £1 a ticket.
Yeah.
I think the venue is too big for the next one, so there will be no money on the street.
A penny a ticket.
There'll be no money on the street for my next Dancing with Dave. But... So to play devil's advocate there, John, is there not a middle ground there? Because you're right, of course they're not just saying, yeah, great, let's do it, see you at Wembley. But is there not a middle ground there where they've been told the tickets are, this is the face value of the tickets, and the rest of the conversation didn't happen with Noel and Liam, and maybe management were then the only ones that were party to this dynamic pricing choice?
No, because...
could that not have been a separate conversation?
Well,
the daft thing with dynamic pricing is that we grudgingly accept it in other things. So trains are dynamic pricing.
Everyone who's ever bought an EasyJet ticket is subject to dynamic pricing.
I've seen train tickets go up in real time in front of me as I'm buying it. Oh, few tickets left at this price. No tickets left at this price. And then it's a tenner more expensive or whatever.
Look, I guarantee neither Noel nor Liam have as forensic an approach to their ticket pricing as I do. That I can absolutely,
I can guarantee
that.
I can guarantee.
And they will not have. I would be amazed if they'd had a conversation going, right, so the tickets start at 73 for the seats at the back. They're 150 for the tickets at the front, but we're going to dynamically price that up to 350 after X number of sold. I guarantee that specific level of specificity is not happening.
Just remember, Dave, you weren't there for the Elis and John Great VAT debate of 2016.
But in order for dynamic pricing to happen on a ticket selling website, not reselling, a ticket selling website, you have to instruct them to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, they can't just do that without asking you, or you could sue them.
I'm sure we've been asked if we want to do it.
It's called platinum ticketing. And people ask me if I want to do, I've been asked if I want to do that on my tours. Again, I'm not saying I've got any moral high ground here, because when I've been asked if I want dynamic pricing for, say, my tickets to the Apollo, what that would mean is you would say the tickets are 23 quid. The first 100 tickets are 23, then they're 25, all the way up to, say, 32. I don't want people contacting me on social media saying, why you said the tickets are 23, why are they 33? Why is my mate's one? Why are the tickets all different prices?
Absolutely.
Because the amount of extra money I would make is not worth that feeling of guilt and sort of slight grubbiness at having basically squeezed people who weren't first in the line.
Yeah, you're punishing people for being bad at admin at that level.
But the entire marketing campaign which has been phenomenal, by the way, for Oasis. It's just unreal how well they pulled it off.
Until that moment, though,
No, but the whole campaign is designed to get to that moment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's what the pre-sale was to gauge interest, because they don't know, are we going to get 2 million people signed up for 1 million tickets, 10 million? They've turned out with 4. So, these things are set up in order to get to that magic point where you can say, this is where we think we can get close to the market value.
Because we said no to dynamic pricing for that reason. And also there are some venues in London in particular that do it as a matter of course.
Yeah.
And you can insist that they don't.
But it's a bit of a fight.
But it is a fight.
Yeah.
And it is problematic doing that.
Okay, so talk about the marketing of it then, and the building toward this big moment.
Well, the pre-sale.
I think they made one mistake, but yeah.
But how big a damage would have it had on the optics of the marketing if within all that messaging they had also said, oh, by the way, there will be dynamic pricing in place?
You wouldn't get this level of backlash.
Absolutely not.
Because you're being totally upfront.
So why didn't they do that?
What? They want to be able to go, we knew nothing about this.
Yeah.
This is, and use vague terms like management or promoters. They want to say, this is all we want to do is sell you tickets for 73 quid and come and have a great time because we're on your side. Whereas the fact is that the agent, the promoter, the band, the websites, they're all on the same team. It's like blaming your estate agent for the price of your own house, right?
Yes.
Yes, but there are also... There are always cases where you can tell your estate agent, no, I want to sell it for 50 grand when it could be
every single house ever sold.
Yes.
No estate agent is putting your house on the market for a price you haven't agreed to.
No. But with I think what upset people is the queue was a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the queue and you have made calculations. You're thinking, right, I want to take me and I want to take my wife and I want to take our 2 children. I want us to be down the front. That's 150 quid. So that is £600 all in plus booking fees. I can afford that. And then people were 25,000th in the queue, 1,000th in the queue, and then they get in there and then the price has gone up. But you know that if you pull out at that moment, you're never going to get a ticket unless it's on the secondary market.
And you've got a minute to decide.
And you've got a minute to decide.
This is where the market value comes in. Because that thing I said about the audience set the ticket price. If everyone closes that window when they see the tickets have gone up to 330 quid each, if everyone does that, then it's above the market price.
Yes.
So they're not going to pay it. So then the price comes back down. I mean, it's a very cynical tool to try and extract as close as possible as they can get to the value of the ticket, because they know that there's no way on earth they can actually, well, they could, and I think they should, actually say, look, the tickets are worth the maximum people are going to pay for them.
But it's fascinating. I've not looked at it that way. And like when you said, I'm going to defend Oasis now, it is interesting that there, of course, is strategy to this. And there is, in a weird way, rhyme and reason to it.
Yeah.
The one thing that could have happened, I'm guessing, possibly, is that because I have sat in our promoter's office and watched John have this discussion, and I've been privy to this discussion, and for most of the time I wasn't even on my phone. I've seen him in action.
But usually that conversation, I just want to point out, usually that conversation is me saying we need them cheaper.
100%.
Right.
This is every time our promoters wanted to go way higher than up. Because what they do, and I maybe Oasis would have done this, they'll have said, well, this is what Taylor Swift charges, and this is what Ed Sheeran charges, and this is what
John Robbins.
The big 3. Triumvirate.
And, when Prince charged 31 quid, he will have known that he could have charged easily double
10 times.
10 times that. But he didn't want to price anyone out. And this is the conversation we've had. So I remember, you look at the demographic of your audience, you think, well, if you're an ultra posh comedian performing to ultra posh people, you can price your tickets accordingly. But obviously Oasis aren't doing that. And they will have had these conversations. And people, I think, because arena gigs and stadium gigs in particular are so expensive, they'll have taken it on the chin to an extent and thought, okay, well, it is going to be over 100 quid. And everyone online was saying, well, I personally paid £17.50 for my Be Here Now tour ticket. And people say, well, the Definitely Maybe album launch was 7 quid. But they're thinking, okay, this is the real world. It's £150 if you want to be on the pitch at Murrayfield or the Millennium Stadium or Wembley. I think what upset people is that it wasn't that when they were clicking confirm, and dynamic pricing is still relatively rare, I think. Well, I don't know if it's relatively rare, but people thought they were going to be paying one thing. That's the mistake they made.
Because in a sense, you've got two different contracts with the audience. You've got the contract that you are making by advertising tickets at 73 quid or 150 quid, right? When they get to the front of the queue and they're 400 quid, people are angry because you've broken that contract you made. But there's another contract which is going on, which is all buried in T's and C's and your agreements with people who are selling the tickets, which is do what you like to get up to this level. There are a couple of situations in which a band like Oasis may not know exactly that this is going on, but in my opinion, they actually reflect worse on the artist.
Well, one of them might have been that very first meeting when they decide to reform. They get Liam and Noel in a room together, and the promoter says, we can offer you a guarantee of £50 million each. And they go, all right, that's enough. Or they start off at 40 million quid. Liam and Noel negotiate them up to £50 million. And then it is up to the promoter. It's up to them on how they generate that revenue so that they can pay the guarantee and that they don't lose money. That's one option.
But I think if that is what's happened, which I don't think it is, but if that is what's happened, that they've just walked out of the room and gone, yep, that's the big figure I want, you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
They've basically said, create a Wild West.
Yeah.
I don't want to know anything about it, because that is a complete abdication of responsibility towards your fans of having any influence. Because as an artist, you have total influence over the price you can charge. So not to exert it at all is even sort of less considerate. Another thing that might have happened is their deal is so excruciatingly unfair that they've gone, we want 110% of the door or 115% of the door. You do what you like to make your money. That's what we want. And acts do this. Now, a traditional kind of split at a theatre or a venue would be somewhere between 70-30, 80-20 in the artist's favour.
But out of that 70, you've got to pay all of your costs. So you've got to pay cost to run the gig and commission to management, maybe commission to the promoter, etc., etc.
Yeah, but also the venue have got to pay all their costs out of the 20%.
Yes.
So if you get an act coming up and saying, I want you to pay me every single pound gross that comes in the door, and I want you to pay me an extra 15% because you've got your canteens, you've got your beer, you've got ticket charges, whatever. That puts the venues in a very difficult position.
But it's important to say at this stage, this is from experience as to how you guys have negotiated. We obviously don't have a clue what actually happened here.
Okay, the queue.
And that is important.
Yeah. And also, this isn't, I'm never having conversations quite at this level.
No.
But my understanding from having spoken to people who do work in this is their job 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
They don't even sleep, Dave.
They don't even sleep, Dave. Is that this is what's happening. I'll be fascinated to know because they're having an inquiry into Ticketmaster, which just sort of shows the lack of understanding amongst people in government
but there's
about
also
what's going on.
Ticketmaster have a monopoly over tickets, and that's I think one of the things that has.
I think the monopoly is a separate issue to the pricing.
I think what's upset people is that the Cure, for instance, who are a massive band, they're not as big as Oasis, but they're a big band. On their last tour, they said, "Listen, we have agreed the ticket prices, apart from the Hollywood Bowl, but we've agreed all the ticket prices." And I am guessing that Robert Smith was very over this, and he said, and there will be no platinum pricing and no dynamic pricing. And that's great, and that's hugely admirable. What that meant was, in real terms, if you wanted to see them in New York and you didn't get a ticket when they were on sale, you'll have paid a tout over the odds. And the tout made the profit and Robert Smith didn't. So it depends on... Yeah. I think people are more comfortable with that. I think people don't want to think that the bands are greedy, but they're more comfortable, strangely, knowing that touts are.
Yeah.
Because I've bought tickets off touts in the past, and I've accepted that I messed up and I should have been quicker on the draw to buy tickets from from normal channels, and I've taken it on the chin that I've had to pay over the odds. And I think it's the band turning into its own tout is what leaves a nasty taste in the mouth. But when you think about it, who do you want to make the money? Do you want the band to make the money, or some bloke?
Well, people want goodies and baddies when they're paying a lot more than they expected to pay, and they would rather a tout be a baddie than their favourite band, especially a band who do make quite a lot of their sort of working class roots and relationship with not an entirely, but an audience that at their core define themselves as like part of a working class fan base.
Yes.
Right, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas the truth is actually this is a problem about transparency.
Yeah.
And if everyone involved were going, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. If you want in, great. If you don't, I'm sorry, it's not for you.
And Robert Smith accepts that he is not making the money from the secondary market. And he has come to accept that, and Prince did as well.
Paul Heaton.
Paul Heaton is a great example.
Yeah.
And an issue also is that if you're thinking traditional touts, guys with bum bags outside venues doing lots of cash,
jackets,
that money is also not going back into the economy in a sense, because I very much doubt they're doing a tax return with like 50 grand.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Point. Yeah.
Whereas if it's happening sort of in plain sight.
Oh, Oasis are being taxed on this.
Yeah.
They will be being taxed on this. And the bloke in the big jacket outside the Cardiff International Arena, who I bought tickets from, he was not declaring that cash. Absolutely.
Just going to check my notes, Dave.
Check your notes. John, you've been dancing for 40 minutes now. Are you tired?
But this is the dance.
My hamstrings
Dave.
tomorrow are going to be a mess.
I'm loving the dance. I'm just letting John know how long he's been dancing for, given that the dance kind of usually stops at around 60 minutes.
This
I kind of want
his
a coffee.
dance.
I want a coffee and to check I've got condoms in my bag.
Because your dance is so sexy.
Dave, this dance, honestly. And I'm hoping I don't get a shed load of DMs telling me off about my dance tomorrow.
The thing is, people do want goodies and baddies, and they love Robert Smith for effectively foregoing profit.
Yeah.
And they love Paul. People adore Paul Heaton for that. And people loved Prince for that.
Yeah.
And I know what I would do, but I don't know how privy Liam and Noel were to these conversations.
We don't.
Look, to be totally honest, if the reason I don't do this and we haven't done this is because the extra money is not worth the bad feeling you get. However,
my guilt would be sensational if we were doing that.
But if someone said to me, this is going to earn you an extra £40 million,
yeah,
I've got to be honest, I don't think I could say. I don't think, no matter how rich I was, I'm not sure I could say I don't want £40 million
John,
to say yes.
I give you £80 plus inflation every birthday.
But
you've got enough.
But I like to think I'd be honest about the process.
Yes.
I don't think there are other big artists who refuse to do dynamic pricing. But yeah, it just means that a lot of money ends up elsewhere, because the money exists and the money is going to end up somewhere.
Someone sent me a DM saying, because I posted a thing that on Instagram. Someone said to me, yeah, this is just like if I go into a supermarket and it says 50p on the Mars bars and I take the till and they charge me £2.50. And I see where they're coming from. It's not like that. It's only like that if
there are 14 Mars bars.
There are 14 Mars bars left.
Yeah.
And this happens.
Two of which are in Ireland.
But this actually happens when companies end products.
Yeah.
When they say, they said we're not selling opal fruits anymore. People start selling opal fruits on eBay.
Polaroid film.
They
stopped Polaroid film 15 years ago. People were paying crazy prices.
Yeah.
The amps, the valves on Vox amps.
Yeah.
Because you can't get them. So the ones that are left, Brian May buys them all.
So were you to release your recording of Howl on Bandcamp today, and they were to have dynamic pricing, it wouldn't work because there's not a limit to the.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to buy it 10,000 times, you can.
Sure.
It'll be the same price the 10,000th time you buy it. As
You could, because Daniel Kitson was only selling the same amount of streams as the capacity of the theatre he was performing in when he did his lockdown show.
Yeah, but that's because he's unwell.
Right.
He's unwell and weird and fixing a problem that doesn't exist.
But you do love him, don't you?
I absolutely love him. But that's the maddest thing anyone has ever done.
He did the Torch Theatre, which is a capacity of 330 or whatever it is in Milford Haven, and he sold 330 streams.
I quite like that.
That is what you're doing there. Is annoying most of your fan base for no reason.
It's classic Kitson, John.
How are your notes looking, John? Have we covered everything that you'd like to cover?
Yeah, I didn't get
Dan every week, why are you not turning your gigs into cup finals? And he finds it so irritating. And I say it every week and I love it.
The only phrase I didn't get to use is that the fans are milking themselves.
That's what you said to me on the phone last night.
But that's not a criticism of the fans. That's just what happens when you pay more than you want to pay for something.
Yeah.
Billy Joel.
Yes.
He does Madison Square Garden, I think, once a month.
Does he?
I think so, yeah. Matt Lucas has seen him loads of times at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
I think eventually, if you're like Bob Dylan and you're constantly on a world tour, dynamic pricing isn't an issue. I saw Bob Dylan at Wembley Arena, and I think I paid 75 quid, which is the most I'd ever paid for a ticket at that point. But I did buy it. It was face value. And there weren't loads of touts outside because he now knows the size of his audience.
Yeah.
And so for someone like him, because he's
his famously is called The Tour That Doesn't End, isn't it?
Because you can always see Bob Dylan if you want to see Bob Dylan. Dynamic pricing isn't an issue for Bob Dylan. Even there are like Ed Sheeran gigs a lot. He will come round again. The problem with Oasis is they hadn't been on stage with each other since 2009. Yeah. And in terms of creating demand, what a masterstroke. That's not how they planned it.
I think it probably is.
Not initially.
They were lucky it came out on quite a slow news week.
But this has been
it's been the main story for like nearly 10 days
But
now.
It's been in the press for 16 years.
Yeah.
Because both of them have done other things. Both of them always give good copy and will be interviewed on the big TV shows. And it's the first question. Norton has got Liam Gallagher on. He asks about it. If Jonathan Ross has got Noel Gallagher on, he asks about it. And so you've created this crazy demand.
You've created the dance. Yeah. You've created literally Strictly Come Dancing.
And because their relationship was so combustible.
Oh, just another frisson, another element to the dance. Won't they?
These 14 gigs.
Hubba!
The 14 gigs. This could be it. And it could be it for another 15 years until another one gets divorced.
By which time dance will have evolved.
Like the thing with the Stones is, they come round a lot. Even Paul McCartney, he performs a lot. But Oasis, what you want is scarcity in the market, and they've over the last 15 years
to an unprecedented
point. But from the Beatles in the 70s, I think.
Right.
ABBA got offered something ridiculous to reform. But the Smiths would have been huge, but not like this. This is absolutely incredible in terms of demand.
Fascinating stuff. Well explained, John and Elis. You were here as well.
I was sure, Dave. Have you got any more questions about the dance?
I have, but I feel like we've been dancing.
Well, what's your other question? Do quick fire questions.
Let's wrap it. Yeah, I think we're done.
I wish you could see him when we talk to our promoters. It is forensic. I'd love to be there. And I said once, because obviously Phil, Mark and Ed and Amy, they put on loads of gigs from loads of performers. Yeah. After the last tour, I said, is anyone else like this? And Ed said, no.
You could dynamic price tickets to watch you negotiate with your promoters.
A lot of performers want to absolutely maximize revenue, but they don't dance the dance like John does. And I must admit, we have always argued to bring prices down because I think people, when it comes to buying tickets, do a lot of bad back of fag packet maths on how much profit the performer is making.
Let's put it this way. Usually when this happens, the promoter sends the artist a spreadsheet they don't read. In this situation, I send the promoter a spreadsheet they don't read.
Yeah. I've got loads of spreadsheets I haven't opened.
Right, let's put it to bed.
Right, we need to get into some correspondence, don't we, Dave?
We do. The dance was fantastic, but
Well, I still a few moves I've got left.
I don't think we can.
One thing I would very quickly say is that comparing ticket prices now to ticket prices 20 or 30 years ago isn't really fair because of the way that the music industry has changed so much.
Yes.
Because in fairness to artists who are touring now, no one is paying for their music.
True.
So how are you going to earn a living? Now, I know that's different when you're talking about tens of millions of pounds, but it's fundamentally, obviously, tickets are going to be more expensive when most of your income is coming from live work.
Also, it amazes me how few bells and whistles there were to live shows when I started going to gigs.
Well, now they have to be like a full multimedia experience.
Yeah. Whereas when the first big gig I went to was the Manics at the Cardiff International Arena, and it really just was the band.
Well, if you think, watch Live Aid.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just a band playing on a stage.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And all those bells and whistles cost way more than you would think.
I'm not sure how belly or whistly Oasis will be there.
Well,
but the screens will be massive.
Oh yeah, they'll have some big TVs side of the stage.
Well, be their face really big.
Yeah, they'll have big faces, but they're not going to have lasers, and they're not going to have stages going out into the centre of the crowd.
If you watch the big bands headlining Glastonbury in the 90s, it's just bright lights at certain points in the songs, and that really is it.
You say that, Dave, but Liam will be wearing the first ever £10 million parka.
The greatest coat wearer of his generation.
24-carat parka, Dave.
Oh, yes, please.
That?
That'll really rub it in the fans' face.
That's the thing. He'll have bought his jacket from Oi Polloi because he's real. Actually, it would be Stone Island because he's just signed a deal with them.
I think Oi Polloi is actually closed down now, Elis.
Yeah, has it not moved online?
It's not moved online. This is boring
cry.
stuff. This is boring
Dave,
stuff.
You got a ticket, didn't you?
I did, but yes, I took my...
Because Dave knows gangsters.
I took my laptop to the wedding that I had to go to buy tickets in church, which was quite bleak. And I did get some...
I hope you thanked Jesus, Dave, for answering your prayer.
Jesus was in the queue for the tickets, John. He was busy.
Jesus was in the queue for the queue, like me. And the air turned blue, let me tell you.
Here's what I'm saying. I do hope that everyone really enjoys the shows. I hope they're able to sort of put the sort of coverage and because like we said, it's a communication issue.
Yeah.
And I do hope people have a great time seeing a band they're so excited to see. Because if in some parallel universe Queen had reformed with Freddie Mercury, I would be the most excited I'd ever been about anything.
Exactly.
And I'm lucky in that pretty much regardless of what the ticket price for Queen was, I could justify that as a luxury purchase.
The one I'm excited about is Cardiff. First time they walk on stage.
It seems that we're dancing again.
Slash.
The dance is just so erotic.
Slash the if they do any warm-up gigs, they are going to be crazy.
Can't wait for the warm-up gigs.
Do you think there's going to be warm-up gigs?
It's
a whole different dance.
They can't just walk on stage.
They can't.
I mean, Blur didn't do that. They did a whole
hilarious if they did, just tuning up for 20
minutes.
I'm just aware there are some people that aren't bothered by the dance at all.
Yeah, and Dave, when we dynamic price them out of existence, they would have been willing to pay more than a penny, Dave.
So it's good to just do a bit of other stuff in the episode.
But also, no one's paying for this podcast, and you can just skip it forward.
Oh yeah,
just throw your phone in the sea.
Just throw your phone in the sea, Dave, if you don't like it.
Right.